This video is a pictorial description of installing a modified Barron's Big Air Kit on a Yamaha Warrior. Initially you have to remove the fuel tank, the left side chrome air scoop cover, and the right side air filter box. And then you want to remove the air silencer box, which is in between the frame rails. You want to cover up the throttle bodies to protect them from items falling into the engine. And you want to label everything that you take off, so each sensor, electrical connector, and hose for later reconnection. The sensors on the right side of the silencer box are intake manifold pressure sensors for front and rear cylinders. Mark these IMP front and rear. Make sure to mark the sensor as well, the connector, and the hose. The sensor on the left side of the airbox pressure sensor, mark it AP. Be sure to mark this connector also, it has a hose connecting to it. Then you want to disconnect all the spark plug wires. Disconnect the wires leading to the coils and mark them for later reconnection. Remove coils from the coil bracket and mark coils front and rear. Disconnect the connector from the linear control valve. Disconnect the hose from the center of the linear control valve and mark and remove hoses that go to each throttle body, noting front and rear. Remove bracket from the linear control valve. Remove the air temperature sensor from the front of the silencer box. And then attach the temperature sensor to the hole in the new relocation plate. Secure it from the top with a supplied E-clip. I didn't wind up using it because I tried, and as I was trying to put it on, it shot off and I actually lost it. So what you can do, since you're not keeping the silencer box, is you kind of hammer it apart since it's plastic and there's an actual brass bushing in there that it screws into. Use that same thing to screw it to the new plate. Then you want to attach the front and rear coils to the bottom of the relocation plate with the supplied M6 screws and nuts. Attach the linear control valve to the bottom of the relocation plate. Then you want to attach the rear IMP sensor, so the intake manifold pressure sensor, to the relocation plate. And at this point is where I deviated from the directions a little bit, because I'm using kind of some homemade velocity stacks that don't come with the kit, but they do come with the bike itself. You can actually pull them out of the silencer box, so you don't want to throw them away, and they can be removed with a little bit of elbow grease, but there's no cutting required to separate them. Once you remove them, you notice one has a hose connector. You want to plug it using a standard automotive hose plug. Then next you want to cut off the raised ring on the ends of them, of each elbow. It needs to be done so that the filters can actually go over the top of them. And clean them with carb cleaner and put them back on. The front one is the one without the actual hose plug, and the back one you want to use with the hose plug is how they're set up. So at that point I put on the front velocity stack and the homemade velocity stack and air filter, and then continued with the directions, which is you want to place the supplied well nuts into the frame and place the relocation plate between the well nuts with the tabs pointed up. You want to loosely secure it with the supplied 3/8 bolts and washers. Then you want to attach the intake manifold pressure sensor and AP sensor to the relocation plate for the to the front IMP sensor. Attach the hoses from the front and rear cylinders to the linear control valve that you removed and marked earlier. You want to attach hoses to the IMP sensors. Extend and or shorten the hoses to front and rear manifolds as necessary using previously removed hoses. Then you want to connect the electrical plugs to the sensors and the linear control valve. Secure the front of the relocation bracket with the supplied M6 screw. Tighten the well nuts to the frame. And then at this point is when I installed the rear air filter with the supplied elbow that came from, not supplied, but that came from the silencer box, the one that actually has the plug in it. Then you want to attach the supplied hose to the center connector on the linear control valve, and attach the unifilter crankcase vent to the other end. You want to zip tie the filter anywhere between the frame rails and attach the remaining unifilter to the crank vent and zip tie below the frame rail. As you can see in the picture from Barron's, the install looks a little different when it's done than it does from Barron's, and then you're all set and ready to run through it. And then these are some of the parts that you have left over that you can just throw away, and then what the finished product looks like once you button back up the tank. and everything. For now, I've run electrical tape around some of the wiring just to put them together. Later I'll do some other stuff. And then after this project, I also removed the AIS and the different brackets and modified the engine bracket in there, so it does look a little different now. But hopefully this will get you started on some stuff that you can do on your own, and keep on working on whatever it is that you're doing.